The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the, I don't know, what show are we doing? Paranormal Concept Show. Oh, you caught me off guard then.
I know, sorry. We were mid-conversation and I went, oh, God, we're live.
Okay, well, as you know, Kerry Greenaway's joined me in the chat room, in the studio.
Put it together. Put it together, love.
Oh, put the teeth back in, I think, yeah. Okay, let's start there. Hello and welcome to Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook. Tonight we've got Kerry Greenaway joining us. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, how are you?
Better the second time around. How are you?
I think we're rocking it more professionally now.
Absolutely. Oh, you had a week off last week.
I did, yeah.
How did that go?
It went very well, thank you.
Good.
You're trying to get me to say why I had it off, aren't you?
No,
and I'm not going to tell you.
No, it's as well because I don't want to know.
Oh, you cheeky Oh.
Well, have you no swearing on this show, please?
I do apologise.
So you should. I want to see you in the corner on the naughty step.
Anyway, come on, let's be professional. Right. Both
Absolutely.
of us.
Indeed. Right, so, what are we talking about tonight? Oh, yes, Visitations. That's what we're talking about tonight. I thought as Christmas was coming up, and apparently, one of the four most common times you get spirit visitation is when you're possibly on your own and when memorable family events come up, and I thought Christmas is probably going to be one of the family events because most families will get together at Christmas. So I thought, you know what, Visitations would probably be a good topic for tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're spot on there. I think it's a double-edged sword, Christmas. Big occasions, any big occasions, it's always a double-edged sword, isn't it? And Christmas being the main one. The focus is on families and couples and all things jolly and sweet and lovely and you have to be happy with you. Oh, it can be which is great if you've got all those things and it's a happy family and you've got that 2.4 children, a dog in the garage and a dog and a car in the garage kind of scenario. It's great if you've got that.
Is that keeping your dog tonight in the garage?
No, don't speak too soon because he's right by my feet. You might decide to pipe up. But there's a lot of people that aren't in that situation, and it can be an incredibly lonely time, particularly if you've had a recent passing or it's your first Christmas from, having a main member of the family like a mother or a father or a child or something like that who has passed. And so it can be a very horrible time as well. But one of the times where spirit are supposed to visit is kind of when these moments happen because it is very poignant to you. So, I think it is worth mentioning or talking about visitations because people who are maybe feeling a little emotional around this time for various reasons, it's a good reminder, things to look out for. You know, it's a good reminder. And I can't believe we're going airy-fairy on your show, Paul.
I know. What the hell's going on? It's your bad influence. That's what it is.
I knew that was coming. Oh dear.
Yeah, no, I mean, as you said, it's not only is it like the happy memory times. I mean, it can be quite. It's not traumatic, but it can have quite a downer effect on some people that haven't got family and Christmas adverts being rammed down your throat left, right and centre and things like that.
Yeah, and they're all very like lovey-dovey, aren't they? They're all very like happy families and, people, family connecting with you. And if you've lost somebody, you're not going to get that, or you feel that you're not going to get that because that person's in the physical is missing. But they do it, but they do it in lots of different ways. So it's not somebody coming up to you and giving you a present, but they'll give you a present in different ways. And you are right. One of the main times a spirit will come and visit you is actually when you are alone, which is a time actually where you've got no other distraction really. You've only got yourself and your own thoughts, and all right, you might have the TV on or you might be reading a book, but because you're alone, there's no other like physical being interrupting with the energy or around you, or your attention is not focused on and your surroundings so much. It's focused on more to do with the task that you're doing, and or your own inner thoughts. And spirit can step in at that time. Well, they'll step in at any time, but you're more likely to listen when you're alone. I think that's the more key point.
I think it could be that you're more focused, possibly, and you can pick up on the signs.
I think
easier.
If something unusual was going on, if you're on your own, you're more likely to notice it. You're more likely to notice it than if you're surrounded by in the middle of a party. Something unusual could happen. You could miss it completely. As a spirit may do it, but you wouldn't necessarily notice it. So yeah, maybe focus is the good word.
Yeah, I mean, because another one of the most common times that you may get a visitation is when you're sleeping. So again, it sort of I think that sort of ties in with being alone. I mean, although you're not awake, you can still get the visitation, but it's all, I don't know, it's just.
But your guard is down, isn't it? Your brain is doing what it needs to do. So your guard is down. You haven't got your social boundaries up or your emotional boundaries up like you would during the day. You're not as guarded with yourself. I mean, we all have to edit and control ourselves in the waking world to a degree. I mean, how many times do you think, I'd love to say that to that person, but I really shouldn't because I'll get the sack or, whatever. But when you're dreaming, it's like all your boundaries are down, or it's just your mind doing its thing. So it must be easier for spirit to step into that realm to communicate. It must be. And I think dreams of spirit, like people past coming into your dreams, is very common at this time of year. Partly, if you want to look at it from a psychological point of view, your mind is on those things because they're missing from your, this great time. They're missing, so you're thinking, oh, I wish my nan was here, or my friend, or whoever. Yeah, so that could be psychologically explainable. But then when you have a dream visitation, it's so vivid.
Mm.
It's so vivid.
Do you not think that could account for some of the rise of the paranormal reports that we get from like, because I don't know about anyone else, but I tend to get a lot of paranormal reports coming from people's houses and stuff that they think they're haunted more between October and January. So do you not think that could account for some of it?
I think there's a huge... Possibly. I'm not going to discount that, obviously. Looking at it from a spiritual perspective, I would say, yeah, they're going to draw close to you when you're going through these times because they like to make themselves known. But I also think there is a huge psychological factor going on with that as well, with Halloween and the veil is thinning and all of that scenario, which we talked about on the Halloween show, funnily enough. And it carries right through. And I think because you miss people so much, sometimes there's almost like a desperation, possibly, to have confirmation, not just from a medium, but actual self-confirmation. So maybe you're looking for it a little bit more. I don't know. But it does seem to be more in the winter months. But is that because we're all indoors more?
Well, again, that's sort of what I always used to put it down to. But after looking into this visitation thing, and Christmas is a big time for families and friends and stuff. And as you said, if they're not there, then you're going to miss them more, and because you're thinking about them. And when there's a strange knocking sound coming from like upstairs and no one's there, you're going to instantly assume it's them.
Yeah, and there's a lot to do with you want it to be them. You want it to be them. And then there's that part of you that thinks, but what if it isn't? What if it's somebody else? I don't want them. I want my nan. Do you know what I mean?
You.
Pardon?
I think that might just be you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I suppose maybe there is that need for it, which is why we read into things. But I do think people look for more signs around this time because they want that. They want their like past family and friends to come forward and visit and let themselves know that they're visiting too. It's a huge comfort, right?
Yeah.
When you're missing them that much around that time.
When I was looking into some of the more Halloween traditions, there was a tradition about putting candles in the window. Now, I just thought it was a case of like the jack-o'-lantern putting the light in the pumpkin just to make it look spooky. But apparently the reason is that they put the candles in there to light the way home for their loved ones that have passed. And I thought that was really quite a good idea.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's why the whole candle thing is represented at Christmas as well.
Yeah, I mean, the candles at Christmas, I mean, it's a totally different thing from the jack-o'-lantern scenario. I'd just like to point that out, everybody.
Oh, yeah, no, I just thought maybe it could be the reason behind it.
But they do say that, don't they? If you want to guide somebody home, you put a candle in your window. So it does make sense. But but also, from a religious perspective, it's the shining light of God, right? Yeah. So it's a multiple meaning to the candle. But yeah, you do put candles in your window to guide someone home, and that's translated into the physical as well as the spiritual. So yeah, that's what you do. But don't put it in your nets. Just saying, or your blinds.
Blood fire to them.
Yeah, you end up having a really big fire to guide them home by. Except there won't be a home to come home to. But small detail.
When we do investigations and we go into the whole clearing and stuff like that, it's obviously to keep out negative spirits or other energies and things. But is there anything that people could do to try and bring forth their past friends and relatives?
Keep the memory alive. Talk about them.
Is that just it?
Well, what you're doing when you're talking about them, and it's actually more. It's not just about keeping the memory alive, because what you're doing is you're training your own individual energy into the energy that you used to feel when you was around them. So if you want to attract somebody, attract them in the way of also, on multiple levels. Keep their memory alive by talking about them, and do it joyously. Don't be like maudling about it. But do it joyously. Oh, Nan would have loved this. Do you remember when Grandad used to put the Christmas hat on? Do it joyously. And then your vibration as a family will include that family vibration. That will attract them in. Do you know what I mean? You can do all the other things that, you can do, like leave a chair out for them at the table and, but they're just representations. It's more about putting the right energy out there to attract. And if you're all maudling right, if you look at it this way, if you're down and depressed and mourning a person, which you have to go through that process as in the physical, you have to go through that process. I'm not taking that away. But your loved one is going to be like, I don't want to upset them further by coming now, as it were. I'll show them a little sign But if you're joyous and you're remembering them and you're laughing about memories that you had with them, they're going to be like, oh, this is great. This is just how the family used to be. And it's more attractive. It's a more attractive vibration. And that's more likely to attract them in than, you know.
I mean, if you're a spirit and you're looking at all the possibilities of the places you could go and visit, you're going to go to the happy time place. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to go and sit with a miserable git in the corner.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, as a person, if I was looking at my family, and I love my family dearly. I mean, I am very lucky with my family. I know I moan about them, but don't we all? But I am actually incredibly lucky with my family, a very close family. And if I was seeing them upset now, I wouldn't want to make it worse for them. Do you know what I mean? I'd send them small comforts.
Yeah, but then you
signs.
could go. Yeah, but you could still go to them and give them a bit of strength and support to get through.
But I would do it in a more subtle way. Whereas if they were all laughing and joking and I don't know, cracking out the when they was opening the bubbly and all that sort of thing, and they were laughing and joking, I'm more likely to stick around and not just do a small comfort sign. I'd be like involved in that. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts on it. Anyway, I mean, every time on a big occasion, we always raise a glass to the family members that have passed and Christmases that have passed, and we have sat there night before now and howled at some of the memories we've got from like when we were kids, like a game my nan bought, that my other nan, this is from my dad's side, she bought me a game one year, and she got it off the market, bless her, because she had hundreds to buy for it. My dad's side is huge. And didn't have any instructions. So we had to spend all of Christmas trying to make up how this game was played. She couldn't take it back because she got it off market. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was like one of those. And another Christmas, you know, things like that. It's just little things like that. And we were laughing our heads off. And I'd like to think she was sitting there laughing along with us. And what at the time was like, she must have been mortified on the day when that happened, because everyone was trying so hard to make it up to me on that day, because obviously I'm like, oh, it's a crappy present because I don't even know how to play it. But now it's a funny memory. Do you know what I mean? And I hope that my nan pops in and sees us laughing about that, and it makes her happy in spirit. You know what I mean? That's a funny memory. It's a good memory now. Than it was, and I'd much rather my relatives popped in and saw things like that than sitting there being all solemn and you know, what a shame the nans and granddads, because I've not got any of them anymore, are not longer with us and that. But we always raise a glass and say Merry Christmas to them, you know what I mean, and it's all good. And if I was a spirit, I'd definitely be more likely to stick around and do something a bit more.
Do you not like open yourself up to spirit when you're at family gatherings like that, to see whether or not your past family members do pop in?
Personally?
Yeah.
Do I?
Yeah, do you?
Not when I'm with the family. No.
Okay.
I do when I'm like obviously on my own around that time. But then they make, to be fair, my lot make themselves known quite a lot. But then I'm quite an open person. I get all sorts of people popping around this sort of time. Well, actually, I get quite a few pop in between now and the end of January, and then it evens out a bit more. But yeah, around this time, and it's generally around this time that generally it's at my goddamn busiest. This spirit does this to me all the time. It'll be at my goddamn busiest when work is full on and Christmas, and I'm trying to get the Christmas sorted, and I'm trying to get a tree out, you know, and keep the house clean. You know, it's always a really busy time, isn't it, for everybody? And do you think
they just pop in then to sort of help you strength-wise, or to try and help you get your head straight so you can cope with that?
Deal with it. I don't know if it's that, but they'll always bring something important for me to work on in a spiritual manner as well. This time last year they bought a hell of a cookie, is all I can say, for me to deal with, and I did deal with it, but it was a huge energetic undertaking that I took on, and that was this time last year. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, I ain't got enough to deal with. I've now got to deal with this. Thanks a lot, Spirit. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just waiting, because it'll always be around this time of year. And I don't know if it's because, I don't know why they do it, but it seems to be this time of the year they do it. The monkeys. I've said that out loud now, and they're going to be like, oh, right, wow, we were going to give you a break this year, girl, but no.
Yeah. I'm sure they do things just to help you along and make you more focused, maybe.
Possibly, but I did chuckle to myself, because this time last year I'd asked for a sign, hadn't I? If you remember rightly, I said, right, I did this in the summer and it was the hummingbird thing. Well, this time last year, I needed a sign on to do with this energy work I needed to do. And if you remember rightly, I was washing up and I looked up and I saw this flashing pentagram Christmas thing. Do you remember me talking about that last year?
Yeah.
Anyway, I looked up and they've put it back up this year, and I laughed and I went, the flashing pentagram's back. And I had a chuckle about that to myself. So, I think they do come forward and to help you along. And even if it's like, I don't know, finding a parking space when you're really stressed out, or, finding that present, the elusive present that you couldn't find, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, somebody help me out, and then all of a sudden it's there. Do you know what I mean? It's and it's those kind of things. And a lot of people, I know robins at this time of year, because it's very dull, and robin redbreast, and it's to do with their, natural plumage, I think is the expression. They're the red breast of the robin, but robins are very symbolic in regards to spirit visitations. You'll see a lot of robins coming forward, and people saying, oh, I saw my robin today, that's my mum visiting me, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. Or if you get, which is really unusual at this time of year, a butterfly or something like that, and people will be taking those signs, and you'll see a lot of that. I saw that today. My mum, it's my usual mum's Christmas visit, or whoever, my nan's, or whoever it be. People take those as signs, and if that is giving comfort and joy in a time which can be very difficult for people, and that's great. Do you know what I mean? If you can get comfort from those signs, that's what it's supposed to do. The spirit aren't going to come to you and cause you stress and strife, unless they're not going to. If it's your family visiting you to give you a hello Christmas thing, they're not going to come to you and cause horrible things for you. They're going to give you. It'll come at a time where it's important. It will come at a time
it's
where
almost like guidance. It's almost like guidance on a spiritual level.
It is, and it'll come when it's important. It'll come when timing is relevant with that as well. Timing is very relevant with that, and it'll come generally at a moment where they'll be on your mind, and then all of a sudden you'll see a butterfly or a dragonfly, excuse me, or a robin or something that to you is very personal but is symbolic of that person. I generally see a lily. I'll see a lily because that's my flower. And when I got married, I put lilies on the grave. So now, if my nan and granddad are around, I'll either get a smell, it'll either be a whiff of the lily, and I'll be like, there you are, or I'll see one randomly. You know what I mean? And lily's not really a flower for this time of year.
If, for example, they're on your mind at that point, do you not think that you just would notice the lily more?
Yeah.
Because they're on your mind. Because I can understand what you're saying, don't get me wrong, but just to play devil's advocate a bit, I personally, I don't believe in those sort of signs. You know what, the robin redbreast, butterflies, and even the white feathers. I don't go in for any of that. I just think it's just rubbish because they're always about anyway.
Yeah.
And you just might you just overlook them until maybe something's on your mind and you'll see them. Just like when going back probably a couple of years ago, we went through that phenomenon about 222.
Yeah.
And we would see 222 all over the place, whether it be on Facebook. We'd notice it more because it was sort of implanted into our minds, and we'd notice it. And I think I put it down to that sort of scenario.
Yeah, because you've thought of it, it's in your mind, even on a subconscious level. So if you see it, your mind goes, "Oh, You wanted to see a
Yeah.
222? There it is. Oh, look, there's another one. And so, yeah, I do agree with that. The point of a spirit visitation in regards to signs in this way is the timing of them. Now, you can put it out there like I did. I live in the UK. We don't have hummingbirds in the UK. And I turned around specifically, and I turned around in the summer and I went, I want to see a hummingbird. Now, this went on for about 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
3 weeks this went on for. And I put it out there, didn't see a hummingbird. There was no hummingbirds in, like, magazines, or there just wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was talking to Bear. Good evening, Bear. She's in the chat room tonight. And we did a pop-up show. And all of a sudden she went, I want to give you a hummingbird. It was something like that. I want to give you a hummingbird. And I went, pardon? And then she pulled an animal totem card, and the animal totem card was the hummingbird. And I was like, I don't freaking believe that. Do you know what I mean? And Bear didn't know about the hummingbird sign that I'd asked for.
Yeah.
She didn't know. I'd only told a couple of people, just to say, you know, sort of put it out there. And that's how that sign came to me. That spirit giving me a sign. There was no way Bear knew. It was out of a random pack of cards, which I believe was a 52 Oracle deck card. How all right, coincidental, you could argue from a scientific, psychological perspective. But for me, and the fact that she said, I want to give you a hummingbird, or there's a hummingbird at my window, that's what it was. She went, oh, blimey, there's a hummingbird at my window. And I was like, what? And it was the way it happened. That's what signifies it. So the robin, the butterfly, the dragonfly, the feathers, the coins, the rocks, whatever it is that is the sign for you, it's not the fact that they're there, because they're there, like you said, all the time. It's the fact that it will happen in a way that seems far too random to be coincidental. It's so out of pattern.
Yeah.
We was in a random show. We weren't even talking about animal totems that night. Well, I think we were talking about something different, and because it was a pop-up show, and I didn't even know until we got into a Skype chat. It wasn't even a planned pop-up. It was literally just we were talking on Skype. Said, "Do you want to do a pop-up? Let's do it."
Yeah.
It was so random.
Cool.
And so you could say totally coincidental. You're looking at lots of little unconnected dots, and you're making what you want out of that. Pure conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. But yeah, I'd argue. Yeah, okay, you could look at it in that way.
So
okay, I'll take that point. But for me, that was so relevant and so out of the ordinary and so bizarre the way it happened. I couldn't ignore that sign.
I think what, for me, more that the sign would be more the cards than the actual hummingbird at the window. For me, I think I'd be like, well, okay, Bear obviously lives in a place where they're quite frequent, so you're gonna get that. But to have one come up on the cards
at the same time, it was at the same time. But
that was more sign for me than the hummingbird at the window.
If I remember rightly, and please put me wrong, Bear, if you're still listening, I think what for me made it more relevant is she said that's never happened before. And I think in 2 conversations following that, the same thing happened. She had hummingbirds at her window when she was on Skype to me. And it's little things like that that become weird. And that's what it is. So you could see, I walk to down a lake every day. There are hummingbirds around, not hummingbirds, sorry, robins around. There's ducks, so there's feathers around. It's not the fact that they're around. It's when it happens in a completely unusual way. Where a feather will appear from literally nowhere. Well, how did that get in my house? You know, it's winter. You know, I haven't got a bird. You know, I mean, that's happened before. Somebody's woken up and it's been on the pillow beside them. And they're like, well, I don't have down quilts and pillows. Not many people do these days. So where did this feather come from? Or it'll be that's what the sign, that's what you're looking for, something that's so out of place. Or you'll listen to the radio. You could have had the radio on all day, and there'll be one song, and you'll be thinking about the person, and then all of a sudden their song comes on the radio. All of a sudden.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, that's
I
weird.
do know, yeah, I do know someone that they I can't remember what was going on in their life at the time, but there was a lot of problems, and she was doubting her own faith, and she turned around and said, "Look, God, if you're up there, I just need a sign that you're looking out for me." Yeah. And they went to a shop, completely random shop, nowhere near where she lived, and she noticed that under the till there was a little corner of a bit of plastic thing sticking out from under the till. Mm-hmm. She pulled it out, and it was a little poem. Like the quotation poem things you get, but it was a religious one, with the cross and the poem. And she said it was so relevant to her at that particular time. Yeah. And it was a completely random shop, nowhere near where she lived at all. And she sort of took that as, yeah, God's looking after me, sort of thing. So I can understand things like that being signs.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's the key, I think, when you're looking for signs from spirit, if they're around you at this time, is those kind of things. But you are dead right. A psychologist could argue this. They're on your mind, so you're more aware of things that are relevant to them will become more apparent to you because they're on your mind, and that links you to that thing, and you know what I mean? So yes, I get that side of it. But when things happen that seem so random and out of the ordinary, in my opinion, it's incredibly poignant, and it is relevant and validation for you as a person. You're not trying to scientifically prove it, but if it's validating for you and it's good for your soul, take it. Yeah. Take it. Forget what forget the rational explanation. Take it. We're not sitting there going, well, this is proof of spirit. This is proof of life after life. If there's proof for you, go for it. No one is going to turn around and go, no, it's just a robin. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's that heartless, surely.
I've said this before to people. Now, going back to the orb argument, personally, I discount all pictures of orbs. They just do me head in. It's almost like when you see one, it's like, oh, another one, really. But there was this particular woman. She threw a dinner party, and she had an empty seat, and in this empty seat was a picture of an orb, and she just wanted to know whether that was her dead friend come to spend the day with them, and they wanted paranormal investigators' views on it. Now I could see pretty much, I could explain it away scientifically and discount it, but I thought, do you know what, I'm going to be a little more tactful than this. And it was almost like, do you know what, if you want to believe that was your friend, go ahead, you believe it. I'm sure your friend was there anyway. I don't particularly believe that is the picture of your friend sitting there, but I'm sure she was probably sitting there anyway, having a good chuckle to herself and wondering why they ain't dished up her dinner yet. But you know what I mean? It's like, at the end of the day, you want to believe it was your friend. You believe it. Don't let anyone take that away from you.
No, and that's fine. But the difference with that is that's somebody wanting just somebody else to go, yeah, what you're thinking is right. Yeah, they're not wanting a scientific explanation. That's different from a paranormal group going, we've caught fantastic evidence of spirit. Look at all these orbs. You know what I mean? Indeed. That's a completely different ball game. But it depends on the circumstance, doesn't it? No one's going to sit there and say, well, psychologist would argue. You know what I mean? At a time where someone's almost desperate for someone else to go, if that's what you believe, that's take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Take it. If that's what you believe, then take it.
Definitely.
Or no, that's just dust from the Christmas decorations, love. You know what I mean?
To be fair, you could see it was pretty much a reflection of the cupboard, because they took the picture in the flash and it obviously bounced back. But
for them, it
quite easy to see that. But then I was like, do you know what? Discount the orb totally. I bet your mate was sitting there anyway.
Yeah, the
She
chances are she was.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, you know what, just take it. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what other people's opinions are. I mean, there were people that were like, it's an orb, ghosts are orbs, and I was like, really, whatever. But then there was,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
But I don't take the point that, it was still quite raw for her, and to have the dinner party in memory of her.
Exactly.
And I thought, be tactful.
Who are you? As Gemma said in the chat room, she said she thinks if someone wants to believe their loved one has come to check on them, who are any of us to take that away? I wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. Gemma's not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But if they come to us on a professional level regarding paranormal activity, we'll give them the scientific explanation on the orb thing. Yeah. In the same way, if somebody comes to me and wants a balanced viewpoint in regard to signs, I will say my personal opinion is this, and this is how I see it. However, a scientist will look at it in this way. Do you know what I mean? It depends on the circumstances to who you're talking to and whatnot. But I think I still go back to it's the timing and how the sign happens that's the point, not the odds of it happening or, statistics show or anything like that. It's about that. It's about validation for you, and that's very personal. And if you have and we say this in the field, personal experience or is, when you have an experience in the paranormal field, it's generally a personal experience, and you can't equate it, you can't measure it, you can't explain it, you can't do anything other than say it was a great personal experience and it validated that there is life after life for me. You're lucky if it happens as a group, like we had Paul Stevenson on the Supernatural chat show last night. They did an investigation, they saw a table move, 6 people saw that happened. That was great validation for them. They're still trying to explain it. They still can't. For all the years' experience they've got in the paranormal field and the knowledge they've got between them, they can't explain it at this point. So for them, that was like, that keeps them going in the field. It's things like that keeps that interest. It keeps that passion alive. So, yes, we can talk.
Well, that's it. I think as far as like a paranormal investigator goes, when you hear stories like that, it fuels you to want to go to that location as well and inspect that table and see whether or not you can recreate it, or just have a look at the table, inspect it, check the legs, see if there's anything tied to it. Do you know what I mean? And
look at the environment. Look at the environment.
Go through your mind. And I've actually almost secured the location for us to go and have a look. Yeah. But again, when you do paranormal investigation events with the public, I find that I prefer to go away from the public and have personal experiences, because then that sort of focuses my investigation for next time. So when I revisit the location, I can then think, last time, I heard these doors move, so let's go and have a look at these doors, let's investigate them. And that this is why I think a lot of investigators go to one place and they never return, because they think the personal experience is enough for them. But for me, I want to know why that happened.
But that's, I also think that's quite important. Even in my spiritual work, the why is an important factor for me. Why is that working the way it is? Why does spirit work that way through me, or through different ways through somebody else? It is that why that keeps you going. It's that questioning, isn't it? Why do we have a candle in the windows at Christmas? Why is the star at the top? Yes, we can look at the religious things, but I like to go back further than that, because all of the religious factors, as it were, the symbology within religion has come from further back. It's evolved, it's changed, it's been moulded into something different. There would have been a deeper origin there behind that.
That's it. I mean, even with scrying, for example, a lot of people go do scrying in the mirror, but then I think it goes back to ancient Greece, or the ancient Greeks, they used to do it with water. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of it's sort of evolved as time's gone on. To people do it different ways, so I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, so is that why, isn't it? Is that why do we do some of the things we do? And in regards to the paranormal, that's always what's driven me on, is the why. If something's happened or I find something out, I want to know a bit deeper, and I'll look deeper for something. And that's been relevant in my spiritual journey as well. It's not just been taken. I don't take things on face value and blind faith, as it were. And in some ways, it's too rational sometimes. But that's how I work. And spirit will work with you in the way that you work. They know how I work as a person. They're not stupid. They've chosen me for a specific reason to do a specific job. And I do it, and I love doing it. I work with crystals and minerals. There are reasons behind that. Do you know what I mean? I can back it up. And that's probably why they've allowed me to go down that road rather than doing a blind faith, expecting people to have blind faith in something. I can back it up. Because of how I am as a person. They're not going to pick somebody who's... they're not going to put me in a situation where it's a blind faith situation just for the sake of it. Because they know that I'm not going to be able to rest with that. That spirit will know my talents. They'll know, because they've given them to me, I suppose, you want to argue. They know how to utilise their tools the best way, shall we say. If you resonate with a specific way of working, that's how it's going to work for you. Spirit will use that in the way it works best for you. I believe that totally. My journey is not going to be the same for your journey or for Bear's journey or for Gemma's journey or for anybody else's journey. It's my personal journey, and what works for me wouldn't necessarily work for somebody else. The difference is I know a lot of different ways of working. I can't do them all, but I know the theory. I know how to guide somebody down that pathway, but just because I can't do it doesn't mean to say I can't. So that puts me in a teacher role. Do you see what I mean? So my knowledge and my quest for the why has actually broadened my horizon so much I can guide people down a lot of different pathways without actually having to follow that pathway myself, because I've got the knowledge. And half of what you do as spirit work isn't doing it for somebody, it's giving them the tools to do it so they can do it for themselves.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes it's just shining a light in a different area for that person, and the person goes, God, I hadn't even thought of that. Well, how about that? Try that. Tried it. Oh, that worked amazingly. I may not have tried it myself because it wouldn't necessarily work for me.
If you do get any of those signs, do you not ask yourself why they decided to come to you at that particular time? Or
no, because I'll know why. I know why.
Okay.
Because if you're going through a hugely emotional time, and this could happen at any point of the year, if you're going through a really, really crap time, you're really bogged down with emotions and stuff like that, you go, and all of a sudden, it feels like it's gone. You have a moment of pure calm in that turmoil, and it could come from a word from a stranger or a meme you see on Facebook, but all of a sudden that emotional turmoil is just like a release. I'm not saying it goes for good, it'll come back, but just for that moment that is released, that's them stepping forward and saying, we've got you, girl, don't you worry. You know what I mean? It's them saying, you're supported, it's fine, release it, it's going to be good, it's going to work. It's going to work out. One way or the other, it'll work out. It's a journey. It's not you're not stuck at a station. You know what I mean? You can move on from this. And it's that moment of reprieve in a really hugely emotional time, a difficult emotional time. They'll come to you then. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if people are aware out there, but my mum has Parkinson's. So she shakes all the time and it gets her down. And it causes her a lot of pain. Anyway, there was one particular night, because it causes insomnia too. She was up, she couldn't sleep, her medicines weren't working, and she was sitting on the sofa, and she just went, first time ever I think she's done this, because she doesn't like to ask for help, does my mum. And then she just went, Mum, like that would be my nan, Mum, just please give me some relief. And she said it was like a wave went over me, and it probably only lasted like a minute or two. She said, but the tremors stopped. I completely relaxed. Everything just stopped. She goes, and I just sat there in that moment of complete relaxation, which she doesn't get ever because of the Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And the Parkinson's obviously came back. That moment passed. But just for that moment, it was a relief when she needed it the most, when she was feeling at her weakest.
Do you not think that it could be more to do with the subconscious level of the brain?
Does it matter?
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't matter, to be fair. I'm just thinking why that could have... again, devil's advocate.
Yeah, and a psychologist would argue that. A medical person would argue exactly that point. The brain is an amazingly wonderful thing. The power of the mind should never be underestimated, and I think people do underestimate their own power in regards to what they can and cannot achieve with their own mental mindset, with their own thought patterns. Change your thought patterns, changes your life. Totally agree with that. Millions of life coaches out there work exactly in that way. The art of manifestation works in that way. All of that I totally agree with you. It doesn't matter how that happened. It happened. And for her, because at that moment she called for my nan, and at that moment it happened, that is where the validation is.
I do think that obviously the power of the mind is a fantastic thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it could explain a whole lot, to be fair. I mean, subconsciously, she was in so much pain, she just wanted a bit of relief, and the brain was like, do you know what? Yeah, let's give it to her, chill her out for 5 minutes. Or even not even that. But, just sort of do that. But then, I suppose it could also explain the visitations as well.
Exactly.
Like, when you're like in that half sleep, half awake situation, and you see your loved one standing at the bottom of the bed, or whatever you see at the bottom of the bed, and you think you see something that quite clearly isn't there. Even that could be produced from the brain.
Yeah, I don't discount that at all. There are a lot of times where I put it down purely and simply to that, but there are also a lot of times where I wouldn't put it down to that, because I do have a belief in spirit. I do have that. I know that's a belief system in place for me. I know I have a rational side as well, but I do have a belief system set in place that I do believe spirit or exist. But then I've had too much validation to ignore for my personal needs. Do you know what I mean? For me personally, I've had far too much validation.
Well, again, that sort of begs the question then, where do these spirits come from? Because I know that I said obviously from your brain, but then who's to say that their realm isn't there? If that makes sense. So when you think of them, they're there because they're already existing on that plane that's already inside you. Inner space instead of outer space.
Personally, I would go with you're just an energy form. You change your form. That's it.
You've got energy inside your body anyway.
Yeah.
You've got sparks, electricity and that going off in your brain. So who's to say that those little sparks are not the energy patterns from your loved ones? So they're still existing inside you.
Yeah.
Technically, they exist.
Or, look at it like a car. Look at it like a car, right? Your body is the car. So you put fuel in it, you put oil in it, you look after it, you polish it, you do all that crap, right? You turn the engine on, i.e. wake up, spark plugs. They create that spark that sets the engine off, right? I'm no mechanic, I would just like to point that out. But I would imagine that's kind of what happens. But it could be that spark that is, you create that spark for spirit to be able to enter. It could be, although all that's going on and that, you're the one driving the car and that, but those sparks, that energy of that body coming to life and that, could be what provides spirit with the energy to come forward.
Yeah. I mean, again, biologically speaking, part of your DNA structure is your aunts, uncles, mum, dad, across the board.
Yeah.
So, they're part of you anyway.
Yeah, well, okay, we're going into genetic memory.
Yeah, so it does seem logical that when they pass, you've still got their energy inside you as well.
Oh, God, yeah. I've definitely got my nan in me and my granddad at some point to hear them on a regular basis when I'm yelling at the children.
I've heard them too, then.
Yeah. Everybody's heard my mum, my relatives, my past relatives. They always pop out. Yeah, but we also have a very unique energy signature, so don't discount that. Right? So you might have part of them within you, but they had a very unique energy. Every single person, every single sentient being, every single living thing has a very unique energy signature.
Yeah, but I'm
and you can't.
That if, for example, say for example something really bad happens and you need your mum, but your mum's passed, because that memory of your mum is still inside your head, you're giving that energy a form, so you're projecting that out.
Very clever. Yeah, it could well be that.
Yeah.
It could well be that.
There you go. Debunked paranormal activity completely.
I don't agree with you, but it could. It's a good a theory as any, right?
Exactly. That's it. So, that makes perfect sense to me. To be fair.
So you've never had a spirit sign or something happen spiritually that you've gone, oh, that was my uncle, or that was my nan, or that was, or a smell. I mean, I have to say, I moved into a flat, brand spanking new, brand new carpets. This flat was brand new. Nobody had lived in it before. I walked into that flat and the smell was my granddad. And he did have a nice smell, I would just like to point that out. But it wasn't a new flat smell. It wasn't a new carpet smell. It was my granddad's smell. And I walked in that flat, opened the door, first box in, you know what I mean? And I just went, oh, Granddad's here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I've never experienced anything like that. I'm quite, I wouldn't say religious person, but I've got my own beliefs in a religion at least. So the closest thing that I could probably get to that is I tend to go with the flow and gut feeling. And because when I was a kid, I went to a play school and it was called St John Play School, or St John's Play School. As I grew up, I went to a scout group and they were called St John's. I joined St John Ambulance. So St John has always been part of my life all the way through completely. And it's almost like I was guided to St John to get the medical training that I've got. And now, in particular, when I go to town, for example, I'd get off the bus and go straight into the shopping precinct. And they've got 2 levels on their precinct. My normal route is to stay on the ground level and out the other side. But one particular day, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go upstairs. And I went upstairs and there was a guy flat out on the floor. So I could deal with him. Again, I was at Mum's one week and I used to go out and get my money religiously at 10 o'clock in the morning. But something told me that I needed to go and do it later. So I went at 2 o'clock instead. And as I was walking down the road, a 10-year-old kid got clipped by a white van. And I was first on the scene. And these things just happen to me because I go with my gut feeling.
Yeah.
So it's not like...
and where do you think that comes from, though?
I'd just put it down to act of God. That's what I put it down to. Because I go with my gut feeling. It's just,
So something inside you is telling you, we call it intuition, gut feeling, whatever you want to do. But if you follow that, you don't go wrong. And that's a huge thing in regards to... when we talk about life coaching and stuff like that, that's a huge thing. What's your gut telling you to do? I don't know. Well, it will tell you what to do. You have to listen to it. And learning to listen to it is actually it's one of those simple terms that's quite difficult to do at times, particularly when you're, it's an emotional block. Sometimes you block yourself from listening to your gut. you don't. That's the gift you've got. You can listen quite easily to your gut, and you follow your gut very easily. Some people can't. Do you know what I mean? Or it'll be screaming at them, and they'll still stick to their routine or do what they have to do, and won't listen to their gut. So for you, your messages are coming through this gut feeling, which is providing the service you need to do in this world, in this life, your purpose. That's why, and also I want to say this, synchronicities follow you through life. Yeah. So like whenever I've moved, it's always been a 2 or a 4.
Yeah.
In regards to me personally, not like family moving, like mum and dad and stuff like that. But for me, when I've moved to a house, never consciously done that. But my house numbers, and I've lived in a few over the years, has been either a 2 or a 4. And it was only when I moved into this house, I actually connected the dots on that. And this, I've been here for quite a while now. So synchronicities, like the St. John's for you, has gone through your life. Do you know what I mean? Synchronicities for me are 2s and 4s. There are common themes that will show up on a regular basis, and it's pay attention to the signs. They're there. You just have to look for them, because they will be there. There'll be signposts. These are what we class as signposts, and your gut reaction is, as I said, you're very easily following it, which is a really great thing, because you've managed to help 2 people that have been in dire need at the time. And that's just 2 I was going to say, there's just 2 you've outlined. But that's probably happened. If you really sat down and thought about it, you suddenly thought, God, that's happened a hell of a lot more than 2 or 3 times. Do you know what I mean? So where does it step over?
It's not even just that, to be fair. When I meet new people, it always, if we're going to be friends, it always turns out that they need... It's almost like they need some spiritual guidance, and I come along in their lives just at the right time. I found that out quite well.
Yeah.
And it just makes the friendship stronger. But I'm just there when they need someone, and I come into people's lives like that. But then obviously they come and go, and
people do though. But that's a different topic. That's a totally different topic. The why people come and go and stuff like that, that's completely different to what we're talking about tonight in regard to visitations. But yeah, that's a topic we could cover at another time.
I think.
Yeah, but it is weird, I have to say, and this is something that you only start relating the older you get. When you're younger, it feels like the end of the world when someone leaves your life, and it's sad and it's horrible, isn't it? But sometimes it's necessary.
Do you know what? I didn't actually think about any of this until I became a godfather for the first time, because the church I had to go to done courses on how to be a godfather, and it wasn't till I went there that they sort of opened my eyes to it, and I was like, actually, yeah, that sort of does happen. And the more I thought about it, the more convinced I got of it.
It's
so, I mean, it's not that I'm a religious person and I don't go around spouting the word of God and all that sort of stuff. Not me at all. But
I do think the church has got an incredibly important place in society, even to this day. Don't buy into it myself, but I do find it interesting, a topic. If that makes sense. I don't want to trivialise it either. I think it's had a hell of a lot of things it needs to answer for, but as a whole, for a person to give somebody a purpose or a reason for why certain things happen, and a guiding light through difficult times, I think it's an incredibly important thing for somebody, whatever faith it is you follow.
Yeah, I think for me personally, the church opened my eyes to a few things, and I was able to form my own ideas, my own belief system. So it was born from their ideas, but mine sort of evolved a bit as time went on. So I don't particularly believe some of the things they do, because I think some of the stuff they do, and it is my own opinion, that I just think sometimes they're misguided, or they interpret it differently, and I just don't buy into it completely. But I've got my own beliefs, and I'm always in support of everyone having their own belief system.
But we are also born in very fortunate times where we are allowed to have our own beliefs and our own thoughts. Go back in the day, you were very indoctrinated into that way of thinking, and that's how you had to think. You know, back into that was the core of your society, and if you balked against that, that made you wrong. Whereas nowadays we are multi-faith, multicultural. We are allowed to read books and look things up on the internet. You know, if we live in very fortunate times in regard to knowledge and having the freedom to make our own choices and think our own thoughts and find our own belief systems out of belief systems and, you know, stuff like that. So we are very fortunate in this day and age. I think that's worth mentioning too. And, you know, yourself as well as myself have been very blessed that we've been brought up in a family that's been very open-minded and looked at lots of different faiths and beliefs and topics, and not been peer pressured into you're wrong, you know, for thinking that. And family, or so, you know, your social set pressure can be immense, I think. But I don't know anybody who at some of their darkest moments in life haven't at some point or other called out to God.
No.
I don't know anybody.
On that note, we have overrun.
Oh gosh. God, that went really quick tonight.
It did, didn't it?
It did. Oh my God.
So we can't attack religion anymore.
Well, I don't think we attacked it. I think we didn't attack it at all. We gave a balanced viewpoint.
Right. Attack is probably the wrong word. Tackled, maybe.
Tackled, yeah.
Well, very quickly, what have we got coming up for the following week?
Okay, so next week on the Paranormal Concept Show, we are looking at Christmas ghost movies.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
You love a movie, don't you, my lovely?
I do. Absolutely. And they're all paranormal based with mythical creatures. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Oh, bless. We have to do a Christmas movie show, don't we?
We do. It's got to be done. It's Christmas.
Exactly. We do it every year. We try and pick out different movies every year. I think we whistled through the top 50 last year, but we're going to pinpoint down a few different ones, aren't we, this year?
Yeah. Scrooge got to be done.
And What a Wonderful Life, or A Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I've never seen it, and I probably never will.
You really need to.
Maybe.
You really need to. Anyway, so that's what we've got coming up next week on the Paranormal Concept Show. Don't forget, 9 p.m. tomorrow evening, Penny is going live in the studio with Haunted Histories, as she's talking about the old Concept Hospital with the Simply Ghost Nights guys. And she's launching a competition tomorrow night on her show. So if you want to know the details before it goes up on the group page, tune in there.
Excellent. Cool beans. And on that note, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.